The envelope wasn't the most damaging thing I brought to that kitchen table, but it came close. I set it down between the fruit bowl and my son-in-law's half-empty coffee mug, smoothed the corner with one finger, and waited. My daughter looked at it the way you look at something you already know is going to change the shape of the afternoon. She was right. Let me back up. I turned 63 in March, and I did it quietly. Just me, my friend Harriet from church, and a slice of lemon cake at the kitchen counter of the house I've owned outright since 2019. No mortgage. No roommates. A paid-off Toyota in the driveway, and a 401k. I'd been feeding carefully since I was 31 years old, the year my ex-husband left, and I decided the only financial plan I could count on was my own. I work in healthcare administration, have for 22 years. I am not flashy about money. I clip digital coupons. I refinished my own kitchen cabinets because YouTube exists. When my daughter was growing up, I taught her to check the unit price on the grocery shelf label, to understand the difference between an asset and a liability, and to never co-sign anything you couldn't cover yourself if the other person disappeared. She remembered the lemon cake part. I'm not sure she retained the rest. My daughter is 34. Her name is Ivy. She married a man named Cole 3 years ago, and I tried very hard to like Cole immediately, the way you want to like the person your child has chosen. He's not a bad man. He's charming when he wants to be. He has excellent taste in restaurants and genuinely terrible taste in financial decisions, and for a long time those two things managed to coexist without directly affecting me. That changed about 14 months ago. They bought a house in the Atlanta suburbs, a 4-bedroom in a neighborhood with a HOA and a private pool, which they wanted because they were expecting their first baby. I understood that. A baby is a good reason to want stability, want space. What I didn't understand, until much later, was that they'd stretched to get that house. Not stretched like most young couples stretch. Stretched like the monthly payment was built on the assumption that both of them would keep their current jobs, their current salaries, and that nothing, not a medical bill, not a job change, not a car replacement, nothing would interrupt the math for the next 30 years. Cole earns around $115,000 managing logistics for a mid-sized distributor. Ivy earns $73,000 as a senior coordinator for a nonprofit. Together, that's a solid household income. I know this because they told me the night they asked me to co-sign the mortgage. I sat in that chair and I did the math on a legal pad while Cole explained the neighborhood, the school district, the future resale value. I co-signed. I want to be honest about that. I did it because Ivy asked me, and because the house seemed like a reasonable stretch for 2 working adults, and because I told myself I was helping her build something. What I was actually doing was handing them a safety net they didn't know how to use responsibly, but I didn't know that yet. The baby came in January, a little boy, red-faced and furious and perfect. I drove down the same afternoon, held him for 2 hours, cried twice, and drove home at midnight because I had a budget review at 8 the next morning. I was happy for them. I am still happy for him. He had nothing to do with what happened after. What happened after? Started with a text in late February, a Sunday, when I was in the middle of regrouting my bathroom tile and not especially in the mood for surprises. Mom, can we talk this week? Cole and I have been thinking about some things. I said, of course. We set a call for Tuesday evening. Tuesday evening, I learned several things in roughly this order. Childcare for an infant in their area runs between $1,800 and $2,200 a month for full-time care. Ivy and Cole had looked at the numbers and decided that $1,800 a month was, and I'm quoting here, basically a second mortgage. They had come to the conclusion that the most financially responsible solution was for me to retire early, move in with them or nearby, and provide full-time childcare at no cost. And this plan was, again their words, what made the most sense for everyone. I was standing in my bathroom holding a grout float when Ivy said this. I put the grout float down very carefully because it was covered in white grout and I just refinished the vanity. I'm 63, I said. Exactly, Ivy said, like this was the point she'd been building toward. You're at a great age. A lot of people retire at 63. My Medicare doesn't start until 65. Silence on the line. Then Cole's voice, somewhere in the background. We thought about that. There might be options. There might be options. I've spent 22 years in healthcare administration. I understand the cost of options. But I let it go for the moment because I could tell they'd rehearse this, and I didn't want to blow up the conversation before I understood the full shape of what I was looking at. I asked questions. Careful ones. How long did they envision this arrangement? Until the baby started school, they said. So about 5 years. Would they cover my health insurance during that period? Well, they'd have to look into that. But probably I could go on the ACA marketplace, and they could maybe help with premiums if things loosened up financially. Where would I live? They'd mentioned there was space above the garage. Nothing finished, but I could potentially. I stopped them there. You want me to retire 5 years early, lose approximately $140,000 in career earnings and retirement contributions, pay for my own health insurance out of pocket during the 2 most expensive years of my life before Medicare, live above your garage, and provide full-time infant care for 5 years. In exchange for, what? A long pause. Family, Ivy said. I told them I'd think about it. I got off the phone and sat on the edge of the tub for a while. I did think about it. I thought about it very seriously, the way I think about everything that costs me money, which is to say I put it on paper. I wrote out what early retirement would actually mean for me, the dip in Social Security benefits from claiming at 63 versus 67, the 4 years of out-of-pocket health insurance, at an estimated $700 to $900 a month, the lost contributions to my 401(k), the interruption to my career trajectory in a field where I still had promotions available to me. The number I came to was somewhere between $280,000 and $340,000 in total lost value, depending on market assumptions. That's not nothing. That's the financial equivalent of handing someone a house. I also called my friend Harriet, who has known me since we were both young mothers, trying to figure out the price of a car seat, and I told her what Ivy and Cole had proposed. Does Riva not have a mother? Harriet asked immediately. Riva is Ivy's mother-in-law, Cole's mother. She lives 40 minutes from Ivy, and Cole is 61 years old, recently took a part-time schedule at her job at a title company, and, as far as I knew, had not been asked to contribute anything to the childcare conversation. I said I didn't know. I made a mental note. The next few weeks were uncomfortable in the specific way that family situations get when everyone is waiting for someone else to blink. Ivy called twice to check in, which meant to check whether I'd made a decision. I told her I was still thinking. Cole sent me an article about grandparent caregiving that I read twice and disagreed with on several factual points but did not respond to. Then, in early April, I found out about the money. I found out the way you find out most things you weren't supposed to know, sideways, by accident, in a context that made the revelation particularly difficult to sit with. I was visiting for the weekend, the first time I'd been down since February, and I was playing with the baby on the living room floor while Ivy made lunch. Cole's phone was on the coffee table. I wasn't looking at it, but it buzzed and the screen lit up and I saw the notification preview before I'd consciously decided to read it. It was a Venmo notification, $650 from Cole's account to someone whose contact name was saved as Riva. Mom. $650 to Riva. I kept playing with the baby. I didn't say anything. I played with that baby for 20 minutes while I thought about how to hold this information, whether it was mine to hold, and what it meant. At lunch I said, casually, "How's Riva doing? Does she help out much with the baby?" Ivy didn't look up from cutting her sandwich. "She comes Thursdays. We pay her a little. She likes to stay busy. Pay her a little." "That's nice," I said. "What does a little look like?" Ivy looked at Cole. Cole looked at his water glass. "Just like a stipend," Ivy said. "Gas and whatever. Gas and whatever." From what I could see on that screen, gas and whatever amounted to at least $650 a month, which, for 1 day a week, was a $162.50 per session. For a woman who lived 40 minutes away and was related to the child by blood, I was being asked to retire my career and care for this child 5 days a week, full-time, for free. Riva was being paid $650 a month, minimum, for 1 day. I finished my sandwich. I helped clean up. I held the baby for another hour. And when I got home that Sunday night, I opened my laptop and I made a spreadsheet. I want to be precise about what that spreadsheet contained, because I think the details matter. On one side, I itemized my costs. The lost salary over 5 years, $73,000 annually, at current trajectory, with expected raises factored in. The Social Security reduction from early claiming, the health insurance gap years, the lost 401(n) contributions, the opportunity cost on those contributions if invested. On the other side, I put what Ivy and Cole were expecting from me. Full-time infant care, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, for 5 years. I looked up the going market rate for a full-time professional nanny in the Atlanta metro area. The average, according to 2 different sources, was between $22 and $28 per hour. At 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, at the low end of that range, the value of what they were asking me to provide was approximately $220,000 over 5 years, before taxes, before the cost of my own benefits. They were asking me for roughly $500,000 in total sacrifice, financial and labor, and offering me the garage apartment and the word family in return. I also, on a separate tab, noted the Riva payments, not because I planned to use them as a weapon, but because I needed to understand the full architecture of what had been built here, and that was part of the structure. I printed the spreadsheet. I put it in an envelope. I waited. The opportunity came 3 weeks later. They invited me to dinner. Ivy framed it as a nice visit, a chance to see the baby, nothing specific on the agenda. I suspected otherwise. I drove down on a Friday afternoon, arrived around 5:30, watched Cole put a standing rib roast in the oven for dinner while Ivy nursed the baby in the other room and the house smelled like expensive things. A standing rib roast. That's upward of $80 for the cut alone, for a family that claims they cannot afford $800 a month in childcare on a combined income of nearly $190,000. I set my envelope on the counter when I came in. I didn't explain it. Ivy glanced at it but didn't ask. After dinner, and it was a good dinner, I'll give Cole that. He is an excellent cook. After dinner, when the baby was asleep and the dishes were cleared and we were at the table with decaf, Ivy folded her hands and said, "So, Mom, we were hoping you'd thought more about the plan." "I have," I said. I reached for the envelope. I'd organized it simply. 2 pages. The first was my cost analysis. The second was a 1-paragraph summary of what I was being asked to contribute in plain numbers, followed by a single line. For comparison, Riva is currently receiving $650 for 1 day per week. I slid the first page across the table. Cole picked it up. Ivy leaned over to look. I watched Cole's face move through several expressions: confusion, calculation, something that might have been embarrassment. Before landing on an expression I recognized immediately, because I have been a mother for 34 years. It was the face of someone who had not expected the other person to have done their homework. "Where did you get these numbers?" Ivy said. Her voice was careful. "From the math," I said. "That's what the numbers say." "That's not. This isn't really how we were thinking about it. How were you thinking about it?" Neither of them answered right away. Cole put the page down. Ivy picked at the edge of the placemat. "We just thought," she said slowly, "that family helps family." "I agree," I said. "That's why I drove 4 hours round trip every month this year. That's why I co-signed your mortgage 18 months ago, which means my name and my credit and my retirement assets are on the line if this house goes sideways. That's why I was the first one in the hospital parking lot in January." I kept my voice even. I'd practiced this part. Family helps family, but family doesn't sacrifice $200,000 and 5 career years in exchange for a garage apartment and no health insurance. The second page was still in my hand. I set it down. I watched Ivy read the Riva line. I watched the color move up her neck in the specific way it has done since she was 7 years old, and I caught her trying to blame the broken lamp on the cat. "That's private," she said. "Cole's Venmo notification was on his phone screen," I said. "I didn't go looking for it, but I'm not going to pretend I don't know it." Cole put his hands on the table, palms down, which is what he does when he's trying to control a conversation. "That's a completely different situation. My mom is—" "I'm not angry about it," I said. which was true, mostly. I'm using it to show you that you already understand the concept of compensating someone for childcare. You're doing it. You just haven't extended that concept to me. The silence in that kitchen was the particular kind that happens when something has been said that is true and inconvenient and not easily argued with. Ivy looked at the placemat. We're not in a position to pay you what we're paying her. I'm not asking you to pay me, I said. I'm asking you not to ask me to retire. Another silence. Cole said, So you're saying no? I'm saying the numbers don't work for me, I said. I've shown you the numbers. I'm 63. I need 4 more years of earnings to secure my retirement the way I've planned it. I cannot hand that to you, and I am not willing to. That's the honest answer. Ivy's eyes were wet. She gets that from her father, the ability to generate emotion quickly, in a way that always made me feel, when she was a teenager, that I was the cruel one for holding any position at all. I used to fold when she cried. I spent most of her childhood folding when she cried. I looked at her for a moment. Then I looked at the placemat, because I needed to hold my position, and looking directly at your crying daughter is not always compatible with holding your position. I am not your retirement plan, I said quietly. I am your mother. I will help you in every way I can that doesn't require me to dismantle what I've spent 30 years building. But I cannot be your childcare solution. That has to come from your budget. Cole said, We can't afford. You can afford a standing rib roast, I said, not unkindly, just factually. You can afford a country club membership, which I noticed the invoice for on the refrigerator when I came in. You can afford $650 a month to Riva. You can afford to make different choices. You're choosing not to. Cole didn't say anything to that. Ivy wiped her face with the back of her hand. The baby made a small sound from the monitor on the counter, just a sound, not a cry, and for a moment all 3 of us looked at it. He's fine, Ivy said, to the monitor or to herself. I picked up my 2 pages. I put them back in the envelope. I set the envelope on the corner of the table, between the fruit bowl and Cole's coffee mug, where I'd put it when I came in, and I left it there when I went to bed. In the morning, I got up early and made coffee, and sat in their kitchen and listened to the house. The baby woke up at 6:15, and I heard Ivy go to him, and I heard him stop fussing when she came in. I heard Cole in the shower. I heard the ordinary morning sounds of their life, the life they had built, and I thought, I love this. I love them. This is not the same as being willing to disappear into it. We were polite at breakfast. Cole made eggs. The baby sat in the little bouncer chair on the floor and watched the ceiling fan with the concentrated focus of someone studying for an exam. I drank my coffee and I held him for a while, and it still felt the same as it always had. That specific weight, that specific smell, the way he grabbed my finger with his whole fist. I left after breakfast. Ivy walked me to my car. She hugged me the way she always does, long and tight, the hug she's given me since she was small and knew how to deploy it. I held on and I let myself feel how much I love her, and then I stepped back. I'll call you Tuesday, I said. She nodded. She didn't argue. She looked tired in the way that new parents look tired, which is different from other kinds of tired. It goes all the way down. We'll figure something out, she said. I didn't know if she meant the childcare or the envelope or us. I chose to believe she meant all 3. I drove home through Atlanta traffic, past the exits I know by heart, past the Waffle House that used to be a Shoney's, past the billboard that's been advertising the same injury attorney since approximately 2015. I thought about my mother, who raised me alone after my father left, who worked the lunch shift at a diner until she was 68 because she had no other choice, who never had the option of turning down an unreasonable request, because unreasonable requests were the only kind she received. I thought about the spreadsheet. I thought about what it means to love someone clearly, without softening the edges of what's true. I thought about the baby grabbing my finger. I turned onto my street and into my driveway, and I sat in the car for a moment with the engine off, the way I used to sit outside the office on bad days and just breathe. 3 weeks later, Ivy texted me. Not a call, a text. She said they'd found a daycare that had sliding scale pricing and a waitlist opening in 2 months. She said the $650 to Riva was being renegotiated. She said she was sorry the conversation at dinner had been hard. She didn't say I was right. She didn't have to. The text said what it said. I wrote back, "I'm proud of you for figuring it out. Call me when you can." She called that Thursday. We talked for an hour about the baby, about nothing, about everything except the envelope. I didn't bring it up. Neither did she. The envelope was still on my kitchen counter. I looked at it for a while. Then I filed it, because I keep records, and I made a pot of lemon tea, and I went back to the bathroom tile, which still needed finishing. I brought the math. They finally did the math. That's enough.